This week on Extracts, wish me luck, my shadow sucks. There'd be a lot less tension if everybody fucked.
It's the mysterious disappearance episode.
Welcome to Extracts, a podcast where we introduce each other to our fandoms one episode at a time. I'm your host, Erin Cline, an X-Files spooky bitch.
And I'm your other host, Stella Cheeks, a slut for Star Trek the original series. Each podcast, we pick 2 episodes that fit a cinematic theme, watch them together, and then record our feelings.
Our theme this week is mysterious disappearance. Ooh.
Made it sound like ghosts.
I mean, it is
mysterious. Could have been ghosts.
Yeah, could have been ghosts.
Wasn't.
Could have been spontaneous human combustion. Could have been lots of things.
Could have been lots of things. For this theme, I chose the Season 2 episode, The Immunity Syndrome. It's a pretty over-the-plate choice. A whole ship of Vulcans dies, leaving no trace, not to mention a whole ding-dang star system. Of course, the very tired Enterprise crew are sent to figure out what happens, which they eventually do, but not before they flirt and fight their way through their feelings in some questionable science. Bonus, it's the episode with the famous head-nodding gif. If you're a Spoon shipper, this is an episode for you.
That's true. And for the X-Files this week, we're jumping back to the end of Season 2 with the episode Soft Light. You know, the one with Tony Shalhoub where people keep getting accidentally sucked into his shadow, which is apparently a black hole, question mark. And Mulder is like, oh my god, maybe it's spontaneous human combustion. And for once, it's actually weirder than even Mulder can imagine, which I guess is why at the end, Mulder's like super chill about this man being taken in by the shadow government. I don't know. It's a fucking weird episode.
But Tony Shalhoub
is great in it.
Yeah.
Are you ready for digging in there, Mr. Spock?
Aggressive head nod.
We're going to attempt to probe the area of darkness to gain further information.
Yes.
Before we begin, a quick-ish episode summary. An exhausted Enterprise crew are on their way to some much-needed R&R when they receive a garbled message from Starfleet mentioning the USS Intrepid, a starship manned entirely by Vulcans. Before they could decipher the message, Spock jerks up with a shocked and pained look on his face. Bones and Kirk rush to his side where he announces that he felt the Intrepid and all 400 Vulcans on board died. Uhura is able to get the message from Starfleet through, and they receive orders to investigate the Gamma 7A system in search of the Intrepid. Kirk reluctantly agrees. His crew is tired, damn it. And they head to the star system. While rerouting, Chekhov discovers that the sensors show no life ratings in the entire system, which is crazy concerning considering that Gamma 7A is home to 1 billion inhabitants. In sickbay, Bones remarks that Spock is medically sound, but is concerned by the shock to Spock's system. How could he possibly feel the Intrepid die when he wasn't in physical contact with any of them? Spock explains that the combined shock and terror of 400 minds was powerful enough to reach him. Bones is still confused and sort of a dick about it, but Spock puts him in his place, citing humanity's history of violence and the inability to feel for their neighbors. Maybe Vulcans aren't the ones with cold hearts after all. Points on the board for Spock. Spock returns to the bridge where the crew discovers a mysterious dark zone that disappears their unmanned probe and cuts them off from communication with Starfleet. After a truly horrendous noise, over half the crew become faint. Spock suggests that the dark zone is some kind of energy drain, and Bones injects the crew with an ungodly amount of stimulants. Hey, it's the 60s! As they enter the dark zone, the hellish sound returns and all the stars disappear. Poetic and terrifying. Bones reports that the crew are getting worse, and Scotty reports that there is an immense loss of power. Turns out Spock was right about the energy drain. Kirk suggests to Scotty that they do a reverse to go forward, and while Scotty thinks he's nuts, he does it anyways because he's that kind of ride or die, and it works, sort of. They soon discover that the source of the energy drain is a giant psychedelic space blob that looks an awful lot like an amoeba. After some wibbly science, Bones and Spock beg Kirk to let them kill themselves for data collection and also maybe to kill it, but mostly for sexy, sexy data collection. Kirk monologues about sending his paramours into danger and ultimately decides that Spock is better equipped to handle the danger. Bones and Spock share a tense moment in the elevator where Bones waits until Spock is 20 feet away and behind 2 doors before he wishes him luck. Spock makes it through the amoeba membrane, but also loses contact with the Enterprise before he can tell the crew how to destroy it. But Kirk isn't just a pretty face, and he speculates that if the organism is like an invading virus, then the Enterprise must act as the equivalent of antibodies to destroy it. Scotty prepares an antibomb, reluctantly, and they blow the cell's nucleus up. The Enterprise escapes with their minimal power reserves and a little nudge from the blast radius, which is especially impressive considering that Kirk orders Scotty to engage the tractor beams, 2 tractor beams, to pull Spock out with them, under McCoy's emphatic orders. Spock and Bones are happy to see each other even though they refuse to admit it, and Kirk knows that his 2 idiot boyfriends need some alone time to fuck and fight, so he prepares to sow his oats elsewhere on shore leave space laughter. feel about this episode?
I liked it. It was fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine. Yeah. I mean, like, the mystery behind it is interesting, and like figuring out what exactly is going on was interesting. I enjoyed lots of it. I took a lot of notes, but like, let's get real. This whole fucking episode is just like McCoy and Spock like aggressively and meanly flirting with each other.
It's mean, this episode
mean.
too.
It's so mean. They're like really mean to each other in a way that's like, what the fuck is happening?
It's like they're like, one of us is definitely going to die, so we have to squash all of our emotions down, and the only one that's left is pure anger and animosity. Fuck you for dying. I love you.
Oh my
and
God.
Kirk is honestly just too tired to deal with any of it.
Yeah, and like,
he's like, I don't know, man. I'm very fucking tired.
Yeah, I feel like that's part of why they're so mean to each other. Is they establish at the beginning, like, we just had this exhausting mission. We're all very tired. We really need this shore leave.
Yeah, they do a good job on coverage of the rest of the crew. Like, Uhura looks very like tired, and when they get the orders, she's like, fine. And like Chekhov is like, oh my God, my life. Like, they do a good job coverage of everyone being like, we are exhausted.
Mm-hmm. And also, it's interesting too if you think about like part of the whole deal with the amoeba, the huge ass space amoeba, is that it sucks energy, and they don't have a lot of energy either. So I feel like it's this like interesting juxtaposition of perhaps that's part of why they're able to do all the things that they're doing, both because they're thinking illogically like the Vulcans did not do, and also like they're just exhausted. Like, they don't have the biological energy that 400 Vulcans who are at like peak physical condition might have too. So I think that that's like an interesting piece of that, whether it was intentional or not.
I think some critics definitely note that one of the strengths of this episode particularly is, even though we know that the Enterprise crew is very exhausted and overworked and tired, that they still live up to that idea of like the finest ship in the fleet, the finest like crew in the fleet, which is something that Spock says at the end when he's like, I'm about to die. I want everyone to know that my crew is pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, even when they're exhausted and tired, like they can still function in a way that a normal crew would like fall apart, which is like part of the reason why they're the flagship.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I also looked it up because I mean, essentially, this is a black hole.
Right.
Like, what's happening with this negative space is they're being sucked into a black hole.
But it's a black hole that can have babies.
Yeah, it can have babies and become more black holes, which is what black holes do. I looked it up because this is the like mid 60s, right? That this episode came out. The first paper on black holes that like theorized that it's a place that nothing can escape from was only 1958. And so a lot of this is stuff that like people kind of know, but it's different than today. Like, people don't read scientific papers. It's not like that's a thing that would be like common cultural knowledge either. So it's interesting to see them like sort of talking about a black hole in a place where like we know that this stuff exists, but we as like lay people who would be watching this would have like no real concept of what that is, just as an energy suck basically. And so I thought this was like an interesting 1960s television representation of a black hole also.
Right. And they give it like life, right? Too.
Yeah.
They make it a single-celled organism. They make it an amoeba. I made a joke in my notes like, you've met a bunch of godlike creatures who are lights. Now meet the evil energy creature. It's a recurring theme. Because it's definitely a recurring theme in TOS, but it is a recurring theme in Star Trek. They're like, we need a MacGuffin. I don't know, big blob that sucks energy. Let's figure it out. So this is definitely like one of those like old school tropes of, we don't know. Where is it coming from?
Let's kill it.
Right. Which is also kind of like, it's interesting to me when the Star Trek episodes choose like, no, we value life and we want to learn and like whatever. And then when they're like, fuck it, this thing must die.
Yeah. And
which it like does kind of make sense in this episode because they say like this amoeba kills an entire star system, right? And that's only one of them. So if there's more, it could eventually wipe out everything. So
it could become the body that we're then the like virus inside of, which they say later, which is like a really interesting concept too.
Yeah. So it's like, it's imperative that they do kill this, but it is like, you know, for a exploratory mission, it's like, I don't know, let's kill it. Though, you know, Bones and Spock specifically are like, we have to get some data first.
I will die to get this data.
I will kill myself for data.
Yeah, I love how much they argue about who gets to die for science. Like,
that is also a recurring theme.
They are so horny to die for science. It is outrageous. Like, I mean, it makes sense for their personalities, and it's not like it's out of nowhere for either McCoy or for Spock, but it is just so aggressive, like outrageously aggressive. And like, as a Spoon shipper, I obviously enjoyed it, but even with me, I was like, what the fuck?
Calm down.
Also, tell Dr. McCoy you wouldn't have survived. Like, Jesus Christ.
He's like, it's the equivalent of being on your deathbed and getting one last Dunkin'.
I might die at any moment, but I want to let you know I was right, motherfucker.
It's like we talked about in Plug, Spooky 30s, in the It episode, where it's like the Eddie Ritchie moment of like, I fucked your mom, I'm dead. That's just like a very specific way of flirting.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, it was like jaw-dropping a couple of times how just absolutely insane Spock was to Bones. Like, I'm going to do everything I can to let you know that I was right and you were wrong, and I'm the one that gets to die for science.
Well, and also, like, when Kirk finally chooses, like, I'm sorry, Spock. And so they think that means that Kirk chooses Bones, and Bones does his little, like...
I'm a pig in shit. Yeah. I'm so excited.
His little heel bounce, like, of excitement. But then, you know, he's like, no, I'm sorry because I'm sending my friend to die. Everybody calm down. Jesus. Get out of my quarters. I can't even look at you, even though you're about to die.
I like how he, too, was like, in a very Kirk move, was like, no, it should be me. I should be the one that does it.
And they both were like, no, this is not about you.
This is not about you. You're not good enough at science, motherfucker.
Even though he's the one that figures out.
I know, right? Like, he's perfectly good at science.
It's just a funny episode of... It's mostly Spock and Bones trying to one-up each other, but Kirk is still there in the background like, I am also part of this and very smart.
I don't know if you know this, but I'm also very good at things. Like, shut up. Shut up, Spock.
It's very funny.
I thought I was going to lose my shit. I was so excited for the nodding, too. I had no idea that this was in this episode. I was just absolutely fucking delighted.
It is really fun to go through these because, like we've said, like X-Files and Star Trek are these, like, big pop culture monoliths. And so we've both obviously seen a bunch of stuff from it. And so, like, when you see those moments, that head nod gif is one of the most famous Star Trek gifs that is, like, used on Twitter all the time. And so when you see it, you can be like, ah, yes, yes. But it's also, like, a perfect moment.
Oh, absolutely.
Shut up, Spock, we're saving you.
I'm glad, too. Like, I'm glad I didn't choose that for the gift pick episode because I'm glad I have so much more context to Spoons. Like,
yeah.
I feel like I would have still enjoyed that because I like immediately glommed onto that relationship from like the moment we started doing this podcast. But now having like a season and a half basically of episodes, I'm just like, this is the best. I love this so much.
They are something else. Some A+ flinging in this episode.
So much good flinging. I was so excited about all of the fling. I also really loved when they go into the negative energy field and they did that like camera shake, but they had the like offset colors on everyone.
Yeah.
I loved the way that looked. I thought that was a really cool like cinematography choice. Because normally they just shake it. But
right.
to do that, like, we're crossing a barrier, I thought was very effective and also like, especially after those terrible, terrible noises.
Oh,
twice.
Rough. I like turned it all the way down. I was like, this is rough. We can't be doing this.
Right. And so it was interesting, too, that you get like assaulted with this noise and then you get this like visual assault almost, too.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they did a really good job of placing you as the audience. Like, we are in a very strange and mysterious place. I thought that was very well done.
I love, we joked about it a bunch while we were watching it, but specifically in this episode, Kirk is very tactile during the flinging.
Yes.
He like catches people, throws them back into their chairs, checks on everybody when the flinging's done. And it's like, everybody good? Everybody good?
Yeah. He's exhausted and he's like, I can't ask out loud. I'm just going to touch you and you can let me know.
We were joking that it was like the ref hold in wrestling where it's like, I'm just going to hold my hand and squeeze. Are you okay? Okay, you're okay. And Kirk's like, I just need to make sure everyone's good. He like throws Uhura back into her chair.
He just chucks people
Get
back.
Up there.
You don't need a seatbelt. I've got you.
Yeah, who needs a seatbelt when Captain Kirk's around?
I also really enjoyed Scotty in this episode. I love that Scotty's just like, I guess I'll do. You made a joke at one point. Just give me 2 minutes and a paperclip. Like, he is the MacGyver of this ship in so many ways. Like, yeah, I'll fucking figure it out. I don't know what the fuck, because we've said that a lot about Bones and like medicine, where it's like, I can MacGyver my way into anything. I'll figure it out. Like, I'm elbow deep in concrete. Let's go, motherfucker. But Scotty does the same thing. Scotty's like, well, I don't know. We've got like 3% power. I'll figure it out. Don't worry. He just like runs away to the engineering room.
Except for I love that Bones, when he does his like medical miracles, kind of always is like a little cocky about it, where Scotty's always like, okay. Okay. I guess.
We might all die, but I'll do it, I guess.
I just also think it's great, too, because we've seen before where Scotty will be told to do something by a commanding officer that's not Kirk and is like, no, I'm not going to do that. Yeah. So, like, it's not even the chain. Like, Scotty does not actually give a shit about the chain of command at all. He cares about his crew and he trusts Kirk. And he's like, I mean, you've seen me out of some crazy shit. So, like, sure, you want to go backwards, go forward? I guess. I just love the idea of him being like, I don't give a fuck about the chain of command.
I'm Lieutenant Commander Montgomery Scott. I don't give a fuck about the chain of command.
I care about two things: alcohol and the Enterprise. That's it. 1, 2. Scotty's the only one that didn't need stimulants. He was like, I'm good.
He feels totally unaffected. Like you were saying, he's a true Scotsman. Like nothing phases him.
He's like, I got it. I'm good.
You don't need to put anything in my arm. I'm 100% fine. I was delighted by how they were just like, stick him full of stimulants. He's truly the most 60s shit of all time.
I do appreciate that there are several moments where like they do still look like they're about to fall over because the stimulants are like wreaking havoc in their body.
Yeah, Bones like, man, the stimulants, they catch up to you. Kirk's like, give me some more stimulants. And McCoy's like, I don't know about that.
I don't think you should.
Bobby said at one point, are you going to give me the stimulants or are you going to be a fucking cop about it?
That's fair. I just imagine that in like Kirk's voice.
Yeah. It's absolutely something Kirk would say.
That's his like mess around and find out energy. Like, you gonna be a cop about this? Or you gonna give me the fucking drugs?
He's like, I guess I'm gonna give you the drugs.
Nobody calls me a cop. It's a double dose of stimulants right into his ass.
One on each side of the neck.
Like the episode where he rips his shirt and just shoves the stimulant in.
Bones is a true 60s doctor. What do you need? You're feeling tired? Get over here. Let me give you some stimulants.
Yeah, this episode is good. And it does make sense. Like, yeah. It's not one of those ones where, like, the science is a little wibbly, but it does sort of make sense, and they do a good job, like, talking about it. But it's like, that's not the point of this episode at all. Like, nobody gives a shit about this amoeba. Like, it's all about the crazy shit the three of them, or four, because Scotty has got good moments, are doing. And it's like, the Enterprise survives.
Like a wish and a prayer, basically.
Yeah, like the Enterprise survives because of the chaos, right? Yeah. Like, it does take this special blend of insanity, because any other crew that comes up against the ship canonically do die. And
well, that's like exactly what Kirk says too. He's like, well, yeah, of course, because Spock's like, Vulcans could have done it better. And Kirk's like, oh, well, obviously not. First of all, they all died. We all found
I don't want to remind you, but they did all perish.
Yeah, they all died in a horrible way that you yourself said was not great. And like he said, like, we're doing things illogically. We're like, we are aware of what's going on because we're aware of the like illogicality of this situation. And so it does really feel like chaos alone is keeping them alive.
I've definitely read like fan theories and stuff on like Tumblr, blah, 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 whatever, where it's like Starfleet Command gets the reports from the Enterprise and they're like, this is made up. None of this makes sense. Nobody would do this. These people are liars. Like, this is insane. This is pure chaos. None of this happened. Because it is so crazy and illogical that all these, like...
It just turns into a X-Files Skinner situation where he gets the report and puts them in his drawer without reading them.
Yeah,
it's like, I'm not... Absolutely the fuck not.
They're alive. It's fine. Moving on. Just right into the shredder. Who cares? We're done.
We do not need a record of this.
No. Especially because a lot of it ends in like weird sex stuff. So they're like, no, I did not need to know that part.
And you know that Kirk is putting all that shit in those Stardate logs.
Oh, yeah. He definitely overshares in the captain's log. So they're like, oh, God. Or there's just like one person who's in charge of like cataloging the Enterprise and has like a lot of like shippy feelings and is like totally
that is
super invested.
It does happen in the X-Files.
Really?
There's a character who comes in later who's like, I've read every single one of your reports and I just have a lot of questions and I love you guys so much.
There's definitely that person in Starfleet that's like, ooh, an Enterprise report? I'll be taking this home. Anyways, mysterious disappearance. The Vulcans disappeared. They figured it out. That's the theme of the podcast. So this is the last time on the series that we see Kirk in his green tunic.
Oh.
Rip the green tunic. I like it. People make fun of it, but I really like it.
I like it. I like the weird like wraparound thing with the insignia on the
like
side.
The comet.
Yeah.
Looking like.
I like it.
Me too.
It's very low cut. It's nice.
I think
a wrap.
Yeah, it's just a comfy wrap. I thought this was really cool. So the Space Amoeba optical effect was created by Frank Vanderveer of Vanderveer Photo Effects. He did the amoeba by mixing a bunch of liquids and then pressing it between two sheets of glass, and then he would like move the sheets around so that the liquid would like flow and stuff, and it looked like it was pulsating. And I thought, even though we obviously watched a remastered one, like the original does still look really, really cool, and I thought that was just like an interesting practical effect. We love practical effects here.
Practical effects.
I thought this was a really fun, interesting fact. This is the first episode ending with a Paramount Television logo instead of a Desilu logo, because this was the first episode that premiered after Desilu was sold to Paramount.
Oh, interesting.
So that's just like, because always remember, we got to give it up to Lucille Ball for like getting us Star Trek.
Absolutely. Lucille Ball, ride or die forever.
Ride or die forever. Still not going to see that movie with Nicole Kidman, though.
Absolutely the fuck not. Why would you?
So this is the last episode directed by Joseph Pevney, who we've talked about a bunch. He is tied for the record for helming the most number of episodes in the series at 14. He directed things like Sitting on the Edge Forever, Amok Time, Trouble with Tribbles. Like, he is the guy who does, in my opinion, some of the best episodes. But this was his last episode because he was originally brought in by Gene L. Kuhn, and when Gene L. Kuhn left because he was like, fuck this, and Roddenberry and all this bullshit, Pevney felt that the on-set behavior of the actors went south, and he was like, I don't want to deal with all this bullshit. I'm out.
They all turned into children, and he was like, peace out, bitch.
Yeah, he was like, I'm done. I've made my mark on the series. I'm out. Later. The last thing I want to bring up is there's this moment where Spock says that Vulcan was never conquered, which is like a thing that definitely is challenged in other episodes. Like in The Conscience of the King, there's a line where McCoy says, like, I know why they were conquered, in reference to like Spock not drinking alcohol because McCoy's an asshole. But they've like fan lore and like other like novelization stuff have tried to like explain it away, saying like Vulcan was never conquered by like an outside force. It was more like Vulcans conquering each other, blah, 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 blah.
Fine.
Yeah.
Whatever.
It's just one of those things that like every time I watch this episode, I hear it and I'm like, that is a weird thing to say and like feels not right. But it is a good moment of him being like, yeah, but your planet was all fucked up all the time. So maybe like get your emotions under control before you come for me. Okay, bitch?
I did love that line that Spock said about you find it easier to understand the death of one than the death of a million, because it's true.
Oh, yeah.
Like, absolutely. That is a huge part of human nature. Like, we find it horrifying and like mind-blowing. Like, oh man, 10 people were killed. That's wild. And like, oh, the genocide of an entire nation. We're going to memory hold that. Like, that's very, very true to human nature.
Well, it's definitely true in human nature and like works in this episode, but it's also like a thing that becomes a part of Star Trek like lore and stuff, that like the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one, and like psych, lol, I'm gonna blow up this planet for the need of the one. Yeah. Like, it is something that we see humanity and the characters of Star Trek writ large battle with a lot. Like, where do our duties lie? I have these really close bonds with my crewmen or these people. Like, what do? I have so much power. Well, space. But it is like that for like kind of a throwaway line and like a weird little flirt fight is like really important.
Yeah. These episodes both, we'll get to this when we talk about X-Files more, but these both have good, like, what feel like throwaway lines that, like, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you. Like, these feel very true to both shows, where it's like, these are lines that just get thrown away, and then you're like, oh, whoa.
Wait a minute. This is the thesis of the show.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. This is accidentally the thesis of the whole damn show. You ready for a synopsis showdown?
Yes, I am.
The Enterprise finds themselves inside an energy-draining amoeba that was entirely unprepared for the amount of energy Bones and Spock put into ignoring their feelings and pissing each other off. Maybe the amoeba exploded because of Scotty's bomb, or maybe it exploded from the unregulated emotion. Who really knows?
McCoy and Spock flirt at aggressive levels for a whole episode about who gets to die for science.
Are you ready for Scully? It's me.
I am.
Spontaneous human combustion?
I have over a dozen case files. The human body is reduced to ash without any attendant burning or melting. Rapid oxidation without heat.
Let's just forget for the moment that there's no scientific theory to support it.
Okay.
All right. Here's my quick-ish episode summary.
Godspeed.
Tony Shalhoub is running down the hallway of a hotel, frantically searching for someone. A nosy neighbor tries to figure out what is happening, but when Tony's shadow slides under the door, oops, the man gets sucked into the shadow, leaving a mysterious burn mark on the floor. Realizing what he's done, Tony flees. Scully is called by one of her former students to help with the case, and because he literally can't help himself, Mulder tags along and is like, ooh, a burn mark? Is it spontaneous human combustion? It's not. While Mulder and Scully search the home of another mysterious disappearance who they believe is linked to the case, they discover that both missing men recently traveled by train. Cut to Tony Shalhoub very suspiciously sitting in a train station trying to stay in the soft light. Get it? The name of the episode? Where he does not throw a shadow and therefore cannot accidentally murder anyone. He is promptly chased by two police because, I don't know, a cab or whatever, and despite his many warnings, they step into his shadow and disappear. While reviewing footage of the train station, Mulder spots Banton, that's Tony Shalhoub, frantically looking down for his shadow, and using some real 90s zoom technology, discovers that he works at a place called Polarity Magnetics. When they go to the lab, they discover Banton has been working on experiments with dark matter, and that several weeks ago there was an accident in the lab where Banton was locked in a room with a particle accelerator and exposed to a huge amount of subatomic particles. Scully is now on board with the spontaneous human combustion theory, but in typical Mulder brain, Mulder is no longer convinced this is actually right. They confront Banton in the train station, and after realizing he's cornered and almost killing the agents with his shadow, Mulder actually thinks very quickly and shoots out all the overhead lights. Banton is taken into holding, where Scully's former student abruptly tells him the case is closed, it's over, fuck off! So Mulder's Mulder and calls X, who assures him the government has no interest in Banton, LOL psych, except they definitely do, and do try to go kidnap him like almost immediately from his holding. But the emergency lights come on and everyone except X gets murked by this dude's shadow, and Banton flees into the night. Banton returns to his lab where he tries to get his associates to kill him with the particle accelerator and accidentally kills Scully's student, sort of accidentally, kind of on purpose, but discovers that his coworker has been helping to sell him out this whole time. X kills the coworker, because that's what X does, and Mulder and Scully arrive too late to save Banton from science, so Mulder just freaks the fuck out at X and tells him never to contact him again, you dirty rotten jerk! The case is closed, but in the last scene we see that X did manage to get Banton out, and now he lives a terrible life as a government guinea pig locked in a room by himself forever. The end!
The end. I like that you always just go, the end, and I go, space laughter. We have to end it.
That's how they end. There's always space laughter, and it's always just, that's the end. They drive away and never look back.
Well, it's important that X didn't lie to Mulder.
He did not lie to Mulder. And stays around for like 3 more seasons.
It's a very Vulcan way of dealing with it. It's like, I technically didn't lie. So, who's the real loser here? This episode, there are parts of this episode that I really liked, but it also is just kind of like, okay.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, Tony Shalhoub is very good at this episode.
Yeah, I agree.
He does a really good job of running, one. A+ running.
So much running.
Very good running. But he does a good job of, like that line that you said about, that Mulder said, like, of being paranoid, but also being right. Like,
right.
It's really realistic that Mulder and Scully could listen to, what was his name? Dr. Banton?
Dr. Banton. Okay. Chester Banton.
Oh, Chester Banton. Could listen to Banton's banter. Sorry, I'm an asshole. His like speech about what's happening, and Mulder could walk away being like, I believe it, like that makes sense to me, and Scully could be like, yeah, that is what a crazy person sounds like.
Right, yeah.
Because you absolutely can take that away from what he's saying. Like, they're gonna do the brain suck. Like, that's a crazy thing to say. He was right.
Yeah.
But it is still a bananas thing to say. So I thought he did a really, really good job. And also of him being like, I mean, if you don't sleep and you accidentally kill a bunch of people, like, you would be going kind of psychotic, even if you are right. Like, they are not mutually exclusive.
Right, totally.
I thought that I can't tell if I liked the Scully student thing. I liked it in that I like the idea of a student being like, oh, I could ask my old professor, Data Scully, who's great, and like that. And I thought it did a good job of, you know, we get that idea of like Scully being like, it's hard to be a lady in these fields. This is very hard. Like, we do need to work together and like help each other because God knows the men won't do it for us. So I did like that. But I also think it did serve a good purpose of like isolating Dana Scully further into the X-Files.
Yes.
Right? Because not only does her student die, but Scully kind of has to make a choice. Like, do I commit to the X-Files and like this partnership that I'm building with Mulder, or do I try and walk this line of like, I'm working with the, you know, the regular police and like it's too hard to navigate, and ultimately that ends up with somebody dying, and like it would have been a better scenario had they like not been involved, right? Like, so I think that it's a good foil for Scully to kind of isolate herself more into the X-Files, but also like make that choice. Like,
yeah. And I think it's good too, because Mulder specifically points out, like, yes, you're a woman who exists in this field who faces all of these problems, but the main difference is that you never put yourself before your cases.
Totally.
And like that is what makes you different and why you're like such an important part of the X-Files. And like that continues to be true like basically forever.
yeah, I think it was really effective. I mean, the characterization of the student whose name I am, Ryan, was kind of like milquetoast, right? Like, she's like, I can't figure it out on my own, so I'm going to get help, and then I'm going to yell at them a bunch, and then I did really bad.
I'm going to cower like an absolute asshole and not admit that I was the one that brought you into this case.
Right, and then I'm going to be bad at my job, and oops, I died for it.
Yeah.
So, like, it does kind of suck that she was sort of incompetent in many ways, because, like, she's supposed to be, for us, like an audience, like reflection of like Scully, and so like that I thought was like weak characterization. She's the girl from Genderbender, right?
Yes, she is.
I was like staring at it. I was like, fuck, who is this person?
Yes, she's the female half of the gender-bending alien. Yes.
For like, it was very distracting for me because I was just like, who is this? I know this person.
Yeah.
Because she also kind of sort of looks like the actress who is in Killing Eve, who plays Villanelle. But I was like, obviously it can't be her because of the decade. But I was like, okay, it's not her, but it kind of looks like her. Where have I seen this person? Okay, so I'm not going crazy.
No, you're not.
Very good.
Good for you for pulling that out. That's impressive, to be honest.
She has a pretty distinct face.
Yes, she does.
But she hasn't really done a lot of stuff. I'm sure we'll get to it.
We got a whole corner for that.
Yeah, I don't know. This had like a lot of good stuff and some good lines, like the like, I'll buy you a utility belt for your birthday. That was a great line.
Yeah.
But it was also kind of like a, okay, the government's bad and like science. Also, like, it was really hard for me to get over where he was like, my shadow is like dark matter and it sucks the matter. And blah, blah. It's like, okay, so then everything should be sucked into your shadow and this earth should no longer exist.
Yeah.
I don't understand why it's only sucking people in.
Yeah, and that's like one of the things that's brought up a lot about this episode is that's like a huge plot hole that like why does your shadow only suck biological matter, and like, is it only biological matter? We never see him around animals. So
we never see him around animals, and I guess like you wouldn't be able to see if it was happening to like germs and shit.
Right.
But
so
also like wouldn't anything his shadow touched like make it unlivable for people? And
right. Like it's very unclear. That doesn't really make any sense. And like I said to you after we finished watching it too, like you throw the first person he should kill is himself, because you throw shadows on yourself constantly, and like for I guess because the particles went through him.
Right, maybe it's like some poison ivy situation where it's like I can't poison myself, but I can poison other people.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a huge plot hole. It does not make sense.
Throughout the whole thing kind of feel like a villain origin story.
Yes.
Like,
especially when he takes the tape off of his mouth, he's like, yeah, motherfucker, I could kill you. And X is like, you could definitely kill me.
Or
not a lot of people could kill me, but you could kill me.
You could kill me. Or how he fucking kills the detective. Like, he just is like, sorry.
Right. It's like, you're going to step into the shadow and I'm just going to kind of expedite this process for you. And then part of it too is as a demonstration for his partner of like, or his business associate or whatever, of like, you're going to do what I say. Like, there is no back and forth on this. We're not going to negotiate about this. I need you to do this thing. Yeah. Which is also why it's so surprising that he doesn't start the particle accelerator before he gets into the fucking chamber. Like, that makes no sense either. Like, he knows that's what happened before. Like, why would you trust him to kill you? Just like...
because he's going crazy.
That's true. You're right. He is, like, super sleep deprived. He said he hasn't slept in, like, days.
Yeah, because he's afraid he'll, like, roll over and a shadow will kill somebody.
Wild. That shit's wild. Poor Tony Shalhoub.
Yeah, it is. It did definitely feel like a villain origin story, but then it ended in like a really sad, like Clockwork Orange, like, well, this is my life now. He is very good in that scene. Just that silent scene of him like twitching and like silently crying and his brain being like, you know,
sucked,
analyzed, poked and prodded.
Yeah.
By a heartless scientist. We're getting so much good data.
I know.
Love this data.
Man, that dead scientist would have been really helpful. And X is like, well, I murked him, so fuck you. I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. Okay.
But he didn't lie.
He didn't lie.
He is a killer, but he's not a liar.
That's true. Also, at one point, Mulder's like, who do you report to? Who do you work for? We don't know at this point, but like, I think that you've already seen this. He directly reports to the cigarette smoking man, too. And so he's like a total entity in and of himself, too, which I like X and I like that characterization. He's no Big Ron or whatever, but like, he's around for a lot longer than Big Ron is and like has this very interesting, like, you're confused about what our relationship is. Like, you think that we're friends.
You are a pawn, my friend.
Right. And like,
and it's not my fault that you're too stupid to realize that you're a pawn. Like, you make this situation. So
yeah. And
that's on you, pal.
Yeah. And Mulder's like, I don't want to be your stalking horse. He's like, too bad.
Do you not want to? Because you keep showing up.
You keep showing up. And also, like, I could kill you if I really wanted to. I won't, but I would really like to sometimes.
I think we have talked about the Tombs reference. That was very fun.
Yes.
In the beginning, where they're like, how did this happen in this locked door mystery? And they're like, let's check all the vents.
Yeah. You don't think anyone could squeeze in there?
You'd be surprised.
Yeah. Actually, I included that in my Apocrypha notes that the reason that is included is because this is the first episode that was written by Vince Gilligan. And the reason that he wrote this is because he's a huge fan of the show. And so he, like, in Hollywood, being Hollywood, like, his, like, agent was related to Chris Carter. And so he was like, hey, can I meet him? I'll write a spec script. Hey, how do you feel? And Chris Carter read it and was like, this rules, actually. And they, like, originally the idea was that the shadow moved independently, but to save on like the CGI costs, basically the animation costs, they were like, just have it be a regular shadow, which in some ways I think is like,
I think it's way creepier.
It's way more frightening. The idea that like you have something that's attached to you that can move independent. I think that's part of why his dialogue is, I'm tethered to this. It could escape and go do anything, is because he was thinking as he's performing it that it's moving independently from him. But like the idea that it's just tethered to your movements and like you just step towards someone and they fucking fall into a black hole.
Because there's also like, there's a semblance of control there, or a semblance of maybe I can control it. Like I'm in charge of where my body goes, right? But like it's impossible to control your shadow because nobody's thinking about their shadow at all times or like where the light is and stuff. So I feel like if it had been it moving independently, it's like, well, I go to sleep or I don't. Like, it moves on its own. Like, it's kind of not my problem. But if I go to sleep and I move my body and it moves with me because it's a shadow tethered to me, is like a lot scarier.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a really good choice. This was also the first time, because it was Vince Gilligan writing this, it's the first time someone not on the main writing staff for the X-Files wrote an episode for the X-Files. And then he got a main writing staff job because Chris Carter liked this episode so much. Which, like, again, it's a weird episode and there's, like, a lot of weird things about it. But I can see why after reading it, he was like, yeah, we should bring you on. This is, like, a really good idea. And that's why he included the Tombs reference, because he was like, I just love this show so much. I'm a fangirl. I'm going to include the reference.
Well, it's fun, too, because, like, you see... Scully is the one that goes to look at the vent.
Right.
So that's also, I think, an important moment of Scully being like, I've seen stuff now. Like, this is season 2, late season 2. Like, I've been through a lot. I've seen stuff. I believe in a way. I'm learning. I'm a part of it. So I think that even though it's like a fan servicey moment, it is like a good character moment for Scully.
Yeah, I totally agree. Originally, X wasn't included in this script. That was one of Chris Carter's rewrites, is that he was like, I want to give him a reason to be like, quote unquote, legitimately scared of the government because it's actually coming for him. But at the same time, like, he is a scientist who works for a lab which almost certainly has to use government grants. Like, come on.
You don't get a dark matter accelerator, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
With like
some kind of government
some
money.
kind of outside funding.
Especially in fucking Richmond, Virginia. Like, that's not how that fucking works. And so I think it could have worked without the idea of X explicitly being there. But, like, I think it is a really good choice to involve him. Like we were talking about earlier, X is this, like, looming force at this point in season 2 as well. And so to include him and have him, like, really directly going in and, like, yeah, we gonna kidnap this man. Oh, there's a power outage that I caused that I will be taking over this man.
What a terrifying experience for that, like, front desk girl.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This dude shows up, points a flashlight in
I'm already
your face.
working at, like, an insane asylum, essentially.
Right, exactly. This dude shows up in the middle of the night. All the power goes out. He turns off my phone, so I can't fucking talk to anyone or access help from anybody or confirm that this is supposed to be happening. He shows up with these dudes. They run in. They're duct taping this man. All the emergency lights come on, and they disappear. And she takes the fuck off.
Good for her.
Good for her. She's like, I am not going to die for whatever weird bullshit this is.
No, ma'am.
Fucking thank you. And, like, Tony Shalhoub runs off back in her direction, assuming she saw him leave. She was like, peace out, bro. You got out. Good luck to you, I guess. Tony Shalhoub was on Wings while this was happening.
Wings fame.
Yeah, of Wings fame. Call back to our Spooky 30s episode about it and how much I fucking love Steven Weber as the narrator of it. You should listen to the audiobook. It's really good. He was on Wings. I had never heard of the X-Files. Had no idea what the X-Files was, but when they offered him the part, he was like, I don't ever watch TV. I've never heard of this
He seems
show.
like a guy who doesn't watch TV.
Absolutely. 100%. He's like, I don't need to. I go to the theater. No, thank you. No, thank you. But he loved the script. And so he was like, this is really like Twilight Zone-y. I really like the idea and this like characterization of this like villain origin story, basically. And so he was super into it. And when he started telling people he was going to be on the X-Files, people flipped out and they were like, oh my God, I love the X-Files. I'm so into it. And he was like, what the fuck is this?
This is like the City on the Edge Forever, where she was like, I don't know what the fuck this is.
Exactly.
And her kids were like, do it, we love it. And she was like, okay. And then she ended up being on the best episode of Star Trek.
Right. Yeah, he also said he was really impressed with the on-location filming that the series did, because he said 99% of our filming on Wings is done on a soundstage, while most of the X-Files is shot on location in and around Vancouver. It's an ideal city because it gives producers so many options too, which is true. Like they used 2 different train stations actually to make the train station scenes for this, but then also they like go around the city and like there's the stuff that's shot outside and like the other like set locations. And for someone who works on a soundstage all the time, I bet it's a super cool opportunity to be like, cool, I get to go do something else and like literally run and like take off.
He was
running.
like, I can run?
I get to run. I'm not going to run into a sound wall. Like, I just love that. I think that idea is super interesting. Also, the Pacific Marine Training Institute, where they shot some of the train scenes, they only wanted to let them film after 5 p.m. And they were like, no, the whole idea is that there's not shadows. We need like all of the lights to be on.
The lights, please.
So they like bullied them into letting them start at 2:00 in the afternoon, which is why it's like sort of empty. I thought that was an interesting part of it. This episode receives like really positive, but also very mixed reviews, kind of for the reasons that you were saying, where it's like there were things about it that people really liked. Like one of the people from Entertainment Weekly said that the episode gains points for the obscure subject matter, but then loses them because of the strained like conspiratorial element,
right.
Which like it totally makes sense. But also like that's the nature of the shadow government, is they just like show up and murk people. It's like their whole fucking deal. People wrote positively about this episode too, saying that Mulder and Scully actually get to investigate properly, just like you said. Like they come up with theories, they like build on them.
Mulder's finding fingerprints everywhere.
They're doing actual police work. Yeah, like it's real police work. That's the thing they like basically never fucking do. One of the things that people complained about is that it felt like Mulder and Scully were pushing the wrong buttons, but I feel like that's the whole deal. I think that part of it is because it's season 2, people don't get it yet.
Okay, but I guess I'm confused by that. Pushing the wrong buttons.
They don't understand, like, the government is definitely coming for this man. Yes, we should definitely not be working with this local cop. Like, that kind of stuff where it's like, yeah, but that's like the whole nature of the X-Files. And like, because it's season 2, I understand how people watching it live would be like, I don't get it. But when you have the context of 11 seasons of like, yeah, that's kind of their whole thing. This is just what they do. This is how Mulder Mulders. Like, that makes a lot more sense to me. Yeah, that's all I have for this episode. I was like, it's plot hole. We already talked about that.
Yeah, it's an episode that like, I'm not mad I watched it, but I was just like, okay. And Tony Shalhoub was really good, so like that's all that truly matters.
Yeah, he did a great job. I also thought they did a great job with his makeup.
Yeah, like he really did look sleep deprived.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got like the beard and his eyes are like sunken in.
And if you don't sleep, you go into full like psychosis. Like that is a real thing that happens. So like him making choices of like, am I crazy? Am I not? Like that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, things that pull this episode with the last one. People willing to die for science. He's like, put me in this particle accelerator, kill me fucking dead. Like,
for science!
We will die for science. Synopsis showdown?
Let's do it.
All right. Tony Shalhoub is involved in a terrible dark matter-related accident that causes his shadow to disintegrate people. Mulder and Scully are called in to fuck around on the case, and Mulder accidentally turns him over to the shadow government to be a lab rat for the rest of his life.
Dark matter gets trapped in a scientist's shadow, literally sucking the life out of the people around him. Mulder finds it oddly relatable.
Oh, fuck. Excellent. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. Are you ready for a Deep Throat submission log?
I am. Let's do it.
I'm all right. It's those stimulants. They catch up with you.
Starting with The Immunity Syndrome, this was written by Robert Sabaroff. He later co-wrote a Next Generation episode, Home Soil, and wrote the story for the TNG episode Conspiracy as well. He also wrote for such television shows as Death Valley Days, The Virginian, Bonanza, The High, Chaparral, The Invaders, and The Equalizer. This was directed by Joseph Pevney, which Stell talked about. He pieced out after this, like so many of them do during this show. The remastered version of this episode, which came out in 2007, we talked about, kind of upped a lot of the visuals in this one specifically, added some color effects to the Amoeba itself, but also changed a lot of the view screen depictions, making them more CG and making them pop a little more. Specifically, Uhura asks Spock, exactly what are we looking for, Mr. Spock? And Spock replies, I would assume that. The original episode, the nebulous mass on the view screen doesn't appear until Spock draws attention to it, but in the remastered version it does before to like make it clear that that's what Spock's referring to and not...
Such a dick then. That, you mean?
You mean that thing that's up on the screen?
I'm very busy.
I mean, in Spock's defense, Kirk is being a massive butt to him
very
at the beginning.
tired.
He's very tired, but he's also like, don't give me no answers. You're the science officer. Give me science facts.
If you say unknown one more motherfucking time.
Are you making a joke? It wouldn't occur to me.
That line is so fucking good. Are you making a joke? It never occurred to me. Although it was cut from the final draft, the captain of the USS Intrepid is given as SATAC, or SATAC. Again, that was a Federation ship that was mostly piloted by Vulcans. I believe we talked about that very recently. Mm-hmm. And this is what happens to all of them. Kind of a big deal.
Yeah. They really just write that shit away, huh?
This episode ends with another instance of Kirk saying a pithy thing as a yeoman approaches him and gives him data, and it kind of fades away. As Stell kind of put it, oh, this is what I'll do on shore leave while my two boyfriends work out their problems. That woman is uncredited, as sadly a lot of those yeoman and science officers are. However, it is believed she is also the female Klingon we see in Day of the Dove.
Oh, great.
So we'll see her later.
Day of the Dove is a good episode.
Yes. As Trek tends to do, this plot was pretty much directly, completely copied by a later show. This time, it's the Voyager episodes, Bliss and the Cloud. But as to Stell's point, big floaty thing that sucks energy and endangers everyone in space is kind of also a big thing in, I think, any space exploration show.
Hey, at least it wasn't a snowflake.
At least it wasn't a giant snowflake or crystalline entity.
I don't understand that reference.
Someday.
Maybe someday. If you feel like getting into TNG after this, yeah. For some extended Apocrypha and even some mirror universe stuff.
Our favorite.
There is a PlayStation 2 / original Xbox game, Shattered Universe, which is all about you playing this Federation kind of fighter vessel, but you are accompanying the ISS Excelsior, captained by Sulu, through the mirror universe. And in this, the Enterprise is replaced by the mirror universe's Excelsior, captained by mirror universe Sulu, who basically does pretty much the exact same thing in Romulan space. And that helps to strengthen the Terran Empire's and Romulans' relationship in the mirror universe.
Interesting, especially because Sulu's not in this episode, so he would have only learned about it through, like, I guess, records or something? Because, like, Sulu, because Kyle's on, Lieutenant Kyle's taking his place. Oh, Cowell. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So it's...
Why is it spelled and pronounced so differently?
Because it's supposed to be Lieutenant Kyle, because, like, he is somebody that shows up. He's usually in, like, the transporter room. Like, he's usually in a red shirt, and, like,
We've talked about him in the past. In the movies, he becomes a commander. Like,
right.
Yeah, he does great for him.
The reason he's in a yellow shirt specifically is because they wanted to use shots that they had used before of somebody sitting at the helm in a yellow shirt, but he's normally in a red shirt, but George Takei was filming Green Berets or something probably, and Shatner just fucking forgot the character's name and kept calling him Cowell, which is my personal headcanon that the TOS Kirk doesn't really remember anybody's names, but AOS Kirk remembers everybody's name because he is overcompensating.
And leading to that, like, we see several examples of undercrewmen, lower decks crewmen walking up to Kirk in the show and him having no idea who they are. We see that in Shore Leave. We see that.
Yeah, he's like, who are you?
A bunch of different
sexy
places.
Scientist.
Like, who's this new one? And I think you made the joke when we were talking about that of, like, Bones and Spock have specifically kept those people out of Kirk's sight so that he doesn't know them, which I love. That's my headcanon now as well. Busting that nasty roll over one of those throws on the bridge, that is once again Dick Dial, who is Kirk's stunt double in Arena.
That was a sick roll.
Yeah, you were like, oh!
That was great.
That's one of the ones where, like, you kind of put your hands on the rail to guide yourself, but he full on, like, makes contact with his legs to initiate that flip over. You can't do stunt stuff like that, especially 70s stunt stuff like that, without taking some bumps and bruises. But, like, again, we've seen that roll. We've seen someone straight up backflip over that rail on the bridge. I think stunt people look at that set and are like, oh, this is a jungle gym.
This seems fun.
That's what it feels like.
I'm supposed to fall down real hard? Okay, let's go.
I think even some of the actors to do it. Like, Uhura literally throws herself out of a chair at one point in this episode. She was like,
okay, we're going.
Commitment.
So, as this is a ship in a bottle or ship in an amoeba episode, we don't have any overt guest actors. Everyone we've seen is pretty much does more work on the show or has done work on the show previous. The only one that almost counts is the voice of the Starbase 6 commander, and that's voiced by Bob Johnson. However, he as well is technically not a guest actor because he does a bunch of voices of Starbase commanders and ship things outside of this in this series. He also does the same thing for 11 episodes of Outer Limits and is the mission tapes on all of the voice and discs that explode on the Mission Impossible series. Like,
cool.
This will self-destruct. That's him in both TV Mission Impossible series as well. On-screen credits of his include playing a TV announcer on the show My Mother, the Car.
I would watch it.
You're pinching the bridge of your nose like, I'm so annoyed with myself that I would do this.
I would watch it.
Had to throw that one in there, as well as movie roles in Bad Girls for the Boys and the cult slasher Midnight. We'll move on to Soft Light. Again, as Erin mentioned, this was written by Vince Gilligan. This is directed by James A. Contner. This is his only X-Files, but we've seen his work elsewhere in a lot of things. He started as a camera op on The Wiz, the first Superman movie, and the movie of the Broadway production of All That Jazz. And he went on to direct a bunch of TV shows like Sequest DSV, Dark Skies, Roswell, Dark Angel, Smallville, Firefly, Charmed. He did 20 episodes of Buffy, which is tied for the most for any director, 13 on Angel, and 5 episodes of Enterprise. Moving on to some lore/fan stuff and speculation, there is an odd through line with his victims leading up to all of this, and it's that they're all somehow involved with tobacco companies. That's another plot thread that never really comes to light, even though it seems like it's a very specific thing, with the second victim, Margaret, working at Laramie Tobacco, which is another fictional brand that's also featured in The Simpsons, and the third victim, which we see specifically working out Morley Tobacco, which is the brand that all of the baddies in the show smoke as well.
Well, and also the Tony Shalhoub's character smokes a bunch during the episode.
An aggressive smoker.
Yeah.
So
He's trying to stay awake.
Yes.
I don't know if that got lost in redrafts or re-editing or whatever, but it's literally like 2 or 3 of the people involved in the show specifically working for tobacco companies, and it just nothing happens.
And also,
with
like, it's one of those things where, like, tobacco companies could make it where it becomes an FBI matter because tobacco, like, it's not necessarily a government agency, but because they're, like, so involved at, like, a federal level, too, like, that could give them jurisdiction, and they just, like, completely ignore that, which is super weird.
Moving on to some casting stuff, because we actually have more casting stuff for this. That is L. Harvey Gold as Neworth, that first victim. He was also in the Generation X TV movie, which, if you have never seen the 90s Generation X movie, I highly suggest it. It's like one of the earliest live-action X-Men things, and it's very angsty and good.
I've never seen it.
He was also in Rat Race, Dark Angel, Wes Craven's They, SG-1, and does voiceover work for a bunch of super obscure or short-run cartoon shows like G.I. Joe Extreme, RoboCop, Alpha Commando, and Roswell Conspiracies, Aliens, Myths, and Legends. A bunch of these people are also like super Canadian actors, and so they do a lot of these small TV shows that I've never heard of before. Yeah. That is Craig Brunansky as a security guard. He's also a guard in the X-Files episode The List, a saw operator in Gethsemane, and also has small roles in Scary Movie and Alone in the Dark. That's Steve Basic as the second officer. This is one of those where it's an actor in a small role here that goes on to have a very, very lengthy career in television and film outside of this. We also see him in the X-Files as Agent Will Collins in Pusher, a SWAT commander in Folie à Deux. Yeah, that's him. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I wondered why he looked familiar.
And he's Deputy Kevin Riley in Millennium. He was also the actor who briefly appeared in X2 X-Men United as Dr. Hank McCoy before they brought Beast into the X-Men cinematic series.
I can see that.
Yeah. And has also, again, done just like a bunch of, like, really any show that went through Canada or shot in Canada, this dude's touched, including Mantis, Nightman, Earth Final Conflict. Oh, wow, Earth Final Conflict. I didn't remember that show until I read it. The Sixth Day, Dark Angel, again, Mutant X, 5 episodes of SG-1. He was Raid on 45 episodes of Andromeda, 3 episodes of Smallville, Flashpoint, Marine 3, The Mizrine. Spooksville. He was Sean Sonis on Arrow. He's still working now. He's just doing everything in Canada. That is Guy Frazier as Barney, also known as First Officer. He's also an officer in 3, another X-Files episode. He works with our main guest performer again, playing a detective on Monk in a 2-part episode. Oh. He's a bunch of technicians and guards in SG-1. He does episodes of Psych and 1 Supernatural episode, Season 9's Captive. Moving on, as our government scientist at the end, that's Forbes Angus, who we've already talked about because he's also in Small Potatoes and Bad Blood.
Oh, okay.
He's also done Millennium and Lone Gunman, also 2 episodes of The Sentinel. And if we weren't talking about it back when we covered those episodes, he's also in 2 episodes of Supernatural as well. I know you're already looking at 1.
Oh, this episode is like boring and doesn't mean anything. Rebecca's like an angel that starts a faction, blah, blah. It's boring. That's why I didn't remember it.
So Forbes Angus is in Bad Day at Black Rock.
Yeah, you've seen Bad Day at Black Rock.
Oh, yeah, I have.
He plays Foster in that.
Yeah.
And he also plays Max Alexander in Dog Dean Afternoon.
Oh, the one where Dean gets telepathy and talks to a dog and starts to turn into a dog. That one's very good.
Guy's got a good track record then.
Wow.
Yeah. See, I remember the important ones.
Insane.
As our heavily put upon night nurse with a fantastic flight response, that is Donna Yamamoto. We also see her as a female agent in Kitsunagari. She has return roles on The Commish. She voiced Chung-Li on the Street Fighter animated series. She's also in whatever RoboCop Alpha Commando was. She had voices on the Olsen Twins cartoon show and also live-action performances in Fringe, Continuum. She played a doctor in the movie 50-50. She was the oncologist in Deadpool and did a run as Hannah Green on The 100. That's Robert Rosen as the Doctor, whom we've also discussed for playing Dr. Elton Pugh in Small Potatoes as well. That's Nathaniel Devereaux as Detective Barron, the actual cop who gets actually pissed at the FBI agents who shouldn't be doing work. He was also on RoboCop Alpha Commando.
Jesus Christ.
Whoever, like, there's like a casting agent that like knew this agent, was like, I need 3 people, and they were like, I got these RoboCop people.
Someday people are going to talk about this show on an episode of something. He also played the ref in Slam Dunk Ernest, as well as film roles in The Core, Get Carter, The Butterfly Effect. His TV guest roles include The Sentinel, Highlander, Poltergeist The Legacy, several 90s Outer Limits episodes, Da Vinci's Inquest, Smallville, and Joe Waterman for 14 episodes of Painkiller Jane. That brings us to Kevin McNulty as Christopher Davey. He's the one you thought you had seen somewhere else, so we'll explain that now, because he is Special Agent Brian Fuller, who is in Squeeze and Apocrypha on The X-Files. He also plays Dr. Arnett in the Millennium episodes Darwin's Eye, Via Dolorosa, and Goodbye All to That. He also plays Jeremy Walsh in Maximum Buyer, so you've probably seen him in Squeeze, which they refer to in this episode. He's another just huge Canadian working character actor. He started on stage, notably working the Strat Festival in 84 and 85. Movie-wise, you may recognize him from roles in Time Cop, Snakes on a Plane, and those first couple of Fantastic Four movies that we all like to forget about. TV-wise, again, just like everything. 6 episodes of 21 Jump Street, 10 of Max Glick, pretty much all the live shows I've mentioned previously, including that Generation X TV movie, 2 episodes of Sentinel, 4 episodes as Dr. Warner on SG-1, 6 episodes of Out of Order. He's Frank Porthos in parts 1 and 3 of Battlestar Galactica's Daybreak.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
He's also Mel Iverson on the Canadian show Arctic Air for 35 episodes, and he's currently Farmer McDonough on the Apple Plus musical parody show Schmigadoon, which I've heard a lot of good things about.
I've heard that's really good.
Yeah. That is, of course, Kate Twa as Kelly Ryan, who we've mentioned before. We talked about her on season 1's That Didn't Age Well episode, Genderbender. Listen to our podcast, don't watch Genderbender.
It's not That Didn't Age Well, that's the worst episode.
Oh, that's right. That is the worst episode.
The astral projection one is that didn't age well.
Oh, God, that's right. Yeah,
But just a warning, that's a whammy because it's the worst. So it's Miri and Genderbender. So
yeah. You listen to our podcast. Don't watch Genderbender.
Don't watch
if you want to hear what I have to say about her, listen to that podcast. But yeah, no.
Don't watch that episode. It's really bad.
Which brings us to Tony Shalhoub, who plays Tony Shalhoub. No, he plays Dr. Chester Ray Banton. More on his experience on set. I found an interview of him talking about this from 2011. Shalhoub chuckles when asked about
2011. It was like, yo, what's up? Let's talk about the X-Files.
Right, pretty much. It was from like some small blog or something like that too. So it was probably
some nerd that was like, so I remember when you were on
the X-Files.
Bro, we're not going to talk about Monk, bro. No. Pulling from that, Shalhoub chuckles when asked about his most vivid memory from working on the series. One of the cast members kept singing Me in My Shadow, he answers.
God.
I really enjoyed working with both David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson. They are consummate professionals and terrific people. David is very funny. He's a closet comedian, really, with a dry and wonderful wit. Oh my God, all of these people fed his ego and created this monster.
For real.
What struck me most about working on the program was the schedule they keep on these hour-long shows. Basically, the show is just 2 of them and the guest stars, but compared to the half-hour show I do, their schedule is much more grueling. It's like shooting a feature in 8 days. Sometimes they overlap and start shooting the next episode before they finish the first. It's incredible. They put in at least twice the amount of hours I do on Wings. Obviously, they've developed a very successful top-flight series of The X-Files, and it's a tribute to their skill. So yeah, I think like a lot of guest actors they bring on here are like, oh my God, no, this is actually hard to do week after week.
Yeah. I love hearing those guest actor interviews where they're like, yeah, I thought this would be like a lot easier, and it's not. This is quite difficult.
I had to run out of several scenes, and nobody told me when to stop.
That's what it is like to film. I had the one movie that I was in, I had to run, and they just let me run forever. I was like, I'm going to stop now, I guess.
Okay, so, we'll, I guess, try to quickly run down Tony Shalhoub's career. He has an MFA from Yale, which like makes sense for the dude that he is. He spent some time in the American Repertory and then jumped to Broadway, where he quickly met his wife, Brooke Adams. They got married in 1992. They're still married.
Ah,
fucking great.
Love a marriage success story.
After moving to LA, after doing some small acting and film work from that, Wings was his first audition in LA.
Fuck him.
So he nailed that. He got the character of Antonio Scarpacci on Wings. Shortly after that, he does the Men in Black movies. He does Galaxy Quest.
He's so good in Galaxy Quest. Full disclosure, is my favorite movie of all time, and it's hard to pick like favorites in that. But he is my favorite character in that. He's so fucking funny. Like, come on, gang, group hug. So good.
He also gets the lead role in the bonkers 90s horror movie 13 Ghosts, which I will show you at some point.
Oh my God.
I actually love it. I saw it in theaters as a kid. It's like him and Matthew Lillard.
Matthew Lillard's nuts in that movie.
But
Matthew Lillard's always nuts in every movie.
Fair enough.
the star of the show is actually like this glass house with a bunch of rooms in it that's powered by these ghosts that are trapped in the basement.
It's wild.
It's a full-on slash murder fest, but it like tries to say like kid-friendly and cool. It's a weird balance, but we'll watch it at some point.
I think you'll like it. I really like it. It's really good.
Yeah. And then after that, of course, he lands the lead role in the mega hit show Monk as Monk, which nets him 8 Emmy nominations and 3 wins, all for Best Lead Actor. He adds 2 more nominations of that for his work on Marvelous Miss Maisel, which is his most recent. Other notable roles, including voicing the Emir on Gargoyles, his series with Neil Patrick Harris, Stark Raving Mad, 7 episodes of We Are Men, 8 episodes of Nurse Jackie, Brain Dead, a bunch of voices on Elena of Avalor. I'm never upset to see this man in anything, and I'll watch most of what he does.
He's very good.
Yeah, totally.
Also, on top of that, he and his wife are big on adoptions and have adopted several children.
Is he Batman?
I've never seen him and Batman in the same place at the same time.
I think Tony Shalhoub is Batman.
I'm into it.
Oh my God.
We've unmasked Batman.
No. That gets cut. We keep Tony Shalhoub's secret. I'm burning this tape now. Bye.
This message will self-destruct.
Monk, no.
When they find me, they're going to do the brain suck they've just been dying to do.
Brain suck.
All right, now for our overall thoughts. These, shockingly, fit the theme well.
Yeah, they did fit the
We're
theme
breaking our season 2.
Finally, we get to the end of season 2 and we're like, oh, that's right. Good at our jobs.
There are definitely mysterious disappearances with the Vulcans and then, the people who get sucked into a black hole, I guess, or whatever. It has a connection with they both deal with like weird antimatter, dark matter, whatever, and then
Black holes.
Black holes. We made a joke about there were like 2 lines of like, "Hey, are you joking with me?" And Mulder and Spock both being like, "No, why would I be?"
Never occur to me to do such a thing.
I'm just stating facts here. So that was a fun moment. And then also how you said that there were some like throwaway lines that were also like kind of like the feces of the entire show.
Yeah, these actually tied together super well.
Yeah.
Like, weirdly well.
Weirdly well. For 2 like okay episodes, they were like weirdly like
Yeah, they were a very good pair to put together. Look at us, good at podcasting.
Once again,
Redeemed.
Casual fan questionnaire. As a casual fan, would you recommend this episode to a newbie?
Yes, I wouldn't not recommend it. I don't know. I wouldn't say like, do you want to get into Star Trek? Here you go. It's one of those like, I think you need to know more about their relationships in order to, like I was saying earlier, like in order to appreciate the like really aggressive
Yeah,
bickering.
I feel like if you didn't know Spock and Bones, you would be like, why are they such assholes?
Yeah,
right now?
I feel like it would almost turn you off from watching it because
Yeah.
you're like, what the fuck is going on with these guys? So I don't know. I don't think I would actually. I think that not to a newbie. To like a casual fan, you're like, oh, I've watched like a dozen episodes. Is this like a good place to go from here? Yeah, sure.
I think it's a good Star Trek episode in terms of plot. Like the plot makes sense and the crew performs valiantly and stuff. But like, Kirk's like a tired bitch.
Yeah.
And, like Scotty's like, well, okay, I'm freaking out. And Uhura and Chekhov are like, I don't know, man, I'm fucking tired.
Yeah.
And then Bones and Spock are trying to kill each other. So like from a character standpoint, I don't know if like that's the best first introduction.
Right, yeah.
But the plot and stuff is like a pretty classic Star Trek.
Yeah, it's not like it would be hard to follow if you just
Yeah.
dropped in on this, but I don't think it's like a great place to start. No. Would you recommend this episode to a newbie? it is really early in the series.
Yeah. I don't think I would recommend it, but I think it's fine. It's not like one, again, that I wouldn't be like, oh, you want to watch X-Files, you should watch this episode. But I don't think you really need a lot of extra knowledge.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you sort of need to know who X is, but he also kind of self-describes.
Totally.
It's like, I work for the shadow government. You wouldn't know about his awesome fight with Skinner, though. So, like, that would
does get referenced in this. I was glad that you got that reference.
And you wouldn't know about the, like, squeeze reference. So it, like, does help to know. But, like, you could watch this with, like, pretty zero context, I feel like, and still, like, understand what was going on.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
What is the scene or moment from this episode that you won't forget?
I mean, the nodding, obviously, but I don't know if I could pick a specific one, but like
Spock being like, you wouldn't have survived.
Yeah, tell Dr. McCoy he wouldn't have survived. Tell Dr. McCoy he should have wished me luck. Like, good Lord. Just Spock alone in this fucking like exploratory vehicle being an absolute grade A bitch. Hard to forget. Definitely hard to forget. Also, Shut Up Spock was just like A fucking plus. I feel like it's another reason I wouldn't recommend this to a newbie, to know how like out of character that feels to have someone say that about Spock, who's like one of the like high.
But he says, "Shut up, Spock. We're saving you."
Right, and like McCoy, like directly, like I'm not even gonna let Kirk answer. I'm gonna be the one that says, "Shut the fuck up and let us rescue your bitch ass." Like, I think you need the context a little bit more. That a newbie wouldn't necessarily understand that. So probably those pieces of this aggressive flirting. What about you?
The scene where Tony Shalhoub slowly takes the tape off of his mouth and makes hard-ass, like, villain eye contact with X and then chooses not to kill X.
Yes, I agree. I've never really thought of this as a villain origin story, but you're totally
It's a thwarted villain origin story. Had he not been captured, it feels like he, would have turned into some kind of villain. Or I guess died. He was trying to die, but... Mm-hmm. Or maybe he was trying to get more power. We'll never know.
Never know.
He's shipping anybody in this episode?
Spones, I guess. It's just so aggressive.
Like, you guys need to fuck it out.
It's like it almost tipped over to the other side of it, where it's like, this is so aggressive.
That's why Kirk extracts himself from the situation.
Yeah.
He was like, normally I can handle this, but like, you two got to work this out on your own. I did not sign up for this. I'm too tired for this.
Yeah, I feel like because I'm super into this Bones ship, I'm like, yes, mwah, chef kiss, I love this. But also like, my God, calm the fuck down. So strange. Are you shipping anyone in this? X and Skinner?
No. There was a moment where I was like...
There's gotta be fic for that, right?
There was a moment where I was like, I feel like X and Mulder should fuck. There definitely was a moment where I wrote
like
that down.
Right in each other's faces.
Yeah, but not really.
I feel like that fic has gotta exist as well.
Yeah.
It's out there somewhere.
It's all out there.
It's all out there.
You just gotta know where to look. Is this episode a fuck, fine, or a flop?
Fine plus. Like, it's fine. It's not like I didn't enjoy it, but again, it's not like I'm not gonna pull this out of the memory hole later and be like, you know what I really enjoyed in Star Trek? This weird ass episode with the space amoeba. So yeah, like a fine plus. Fuck, fine, or flop.
Just a fine.
Yeah.
This is a solid fine.
Yeah, solid fine. These are fine episodes.
They're fine episodes.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that these are like fine and they're like, it was fine. These are just like, this is a fine episode.
Fine episode.
Yeah. I feel like we've talked about this too. Like, as we have more context and watch more episodes, like, fine almost feels like it has a different rating system now.
Yeah.
Where it's like, before it was like, this is fine. And this is like, this is a fine episode. Like, I wouldn't recommend
it's
it.
how you say it. It's fine, or is it, this is fine?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I've watched like almost 30 episodes now. This is fine. I enjoyed this well enough, but would not put it in my top 10.
Well enough.
Well enough. All right, you can find us on the internet. You can follow us at NYD Productions on Twitter and Instagram and interact with the show using the hashtag XTrexPod. You can find me at NYD Urgency on Instagram.
You can find me on Twitter at Stella_Cheeks.
And you can find me on Twitter at Haberdasher9K.
You can also email us at xtrexpod@gmail.com with questions or comments. If you want a link where maybe we disappeared from the bridge and we were stranded on a planet, we had to hold each other for warmth while our crew valiantly searched for us, I have that link. I have several of those links, but I have like a couple that are like really, really good. Anyways, you should definitely hit me up for those links. I'm just thinking about some of them now. I'm very excited.
Wow. Wow.
What if we kissed in the giant energy-sucking amoeba? LOL, JK, JK.
Unless.
And if you want special behind-the-scenes action, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/MYDProduction, where you can get show notes from our episodes, extra podcasts like Unofficial Channels, outtakes from episodes like this, where we discuss shows like My Mom the Car, access to our Discord, where more conversations like this are happening every day. You can get all of that and more there for only $1.
And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and to tell your friends. We find this nerdy shit is better when it's shared.
We'll see you next time for the Accidental Kink episode. I'm very excited.
Drop that in there.
Strap in.
Literally, strap in. In the meantime,
Believe boldly.
Seek truth.
ship proudly.
X-Trex is created and written by Stella Cheeks, Erin Cline, and Bobby Hoffman, and produced by Bobby Hoffman for NYD Productions. Our show theme is Alien Spy by Ionix, and our show art was made by Jonathan Curtis.
Oh, and Dr. McCoy, you would not have survived it.
Oh, snap!